it's one of the questions that I think it's starting with the hardest one. But why do few companies survive and fewer flourish, and most of them are failing?
Yeah, it's really kind of really sad because that's not how we start, right? We expect everything to go well, and at least in the U.S., the stats aren't great. About 50% of businesses that are started in the U.S. Fail in about 5 years.
Wow.
And it actually gets worse down to, I think it's in over 25 or so years, about 16% are left.
25, and it's going down all the time,
yeah,
right?
It goes down pretty quickly, and then it sort of, slows, the curve slows a little bit, but it's still a curve that drops. Now, some of those are for reasons, for selling or for going, for ending the business for good reasons. But that's not, I don't think that's the prevalent reason. And you'd think as you were in business longer, you'd get smarter and wiser, and
you hope.
and you do better. So you'd think that, maybe, those folks who weren't paying attention, they drop quickly, but then the line would drop off, or actually, would potentially level off. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening. And there's two sets of data. There's data from the Small Business Administration in the United States and the Bureau of Labor Statistics that sort of corroborate this. So what I did is I sort of looked at failure and success. I'm a big believer that you should learn from failure, but all you learn from failure is how not to fail. And that doesn't necessarily mean how to succeed. So you also have to study success. But if you just study success without failure, then maybe you're not learning as quickly as you can, because you're only seeing the ones that made it, and understanding those that didn't make it also helps. So what I've come to realize is that there are lots of really good reasons that people go out of business. I about 5 years ago or so, I just Googled, what are some of the reasons that businesses go out of business, and I just started writing them down. And I went after webpage and kept looking until I think it was about 30 or 35. I stopped. I said, well, that's plenty.
Enough reasons.
There are so many. So there's lots of ways to go out of business. And now this is just sort of my own research and my own experience, but it seems to bear out relatively well when tested against really good leaders and really good companies, is that the reasons that businesses fail, I believe, isn't one big thing to me. It's we do a bunch of important things wrong. We just don't do them completely wrong, but they add up, right? As you don't hire really well, and you don't have quite the right person in the right job, you don't really have your values and stick to them. You're not constantly working on your strategy. You don't give feedback well. I mean, there are all these things, and as they add up, and I think that creates a weight, right? That the leader has to pull, and it gets heavier and heavier. And so most businesses struggle or fail. Now, what I mentioned before was that many businesses fail, but there are so many more that didn't fail but are struggling. Seem to do three things really well. One is that they understand that the team is the entity that gets most of the stuff done. And they're really good at understanding how to attract the right team, how to build the right team, because it's really a team is built up of a well-rounded team is built up of idiosyncratic people. And your job as a leader is how to fit those pieces together. Then how to grow that team, and then obviously, run that team yourself. There's data out there that says about 80% of us are on a team, at least one, if you're in a company. And about 60 or 70% of those people are on more than one team. And many of those teams, if the larger the company, are just these ephemeral teams. They sort of come up, they solve a problem, and then they go away. So teaching how to really do all those things is super important, and I do that with my clients all the time. Is teach them how to do those. Really understand how team is there. The other is a system. A business is basically one big system. It's made up of a bunch of subsystems, and then it has a bunch of components for each of those subsystems. And understanding that, I think, will allow you to grow your business in a more systematic way, coincidentally. And then lastly, if you really want to grow your business and you want to be healthy, you should use cash as your primary financial metric, not revenue, not even profit. Profit leads to cash, but it doesn't always. Sometimes we fool ourselves and think we have more profit than we do. And the way to test that is if someone comes to buy your company, and if you're underpaying yourself and you're saying that underpayment goes to profit, they're not buying that. They're going to take that out of the EBITDA, right? Because they're saying, no, I want to pay people what they're worth. Just because you weren't paying yourself doesn't mean that you're profitable. So that can certainly affect you as well. So those are the three things. Team, build, understand that your business is a system and subsystems, and run it that way, and work on each one individually, because they all sort of like a crossword puzzle. They fit together and each supports the other. And then cash is your primary financial growth metric.